Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the second in a three-part monthly webinar series presented by the PCA Residential Forum. Today's topic is shifting your sales system for success during challenging times. Before we begin, I'd like to touch upon a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone will be on mute during the presentation to eliminate any background noise. During today's session, if you have any questions for the speaker, please type them in the chat box, and we will answer them as we go along. Now, may I introduce today's presenter, Brian Young of Home Painters Toronto. Brian started as a student painter back in 1987 and spent the next decade actively cold calling clients at their homes and using various old school marketing tactics, which kept his business thriving. But with the gradual change to internet marketing, his sales started to plummet, and this once thriving business began to really struggle. After hitting rock bottom and receiving the ultimate wake-up call, he hired a business coach, created a website, assembled a CEO team, bought Infusionsoft, and very quickly his business began to soar again. Brian's story exemplifies what determination, perseverance, and leveraging the power of the internet and digital marketing can do for your business. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Young.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to get into this. It's basically on, hold on, make sure we got here. We're going to talk about a number of topics, but I'm going to focus on these three things. Shifting our mindset from a fear mentality versus an excitement mentality on COVID-19. And then I'm also going to work on building a system around technology, leveraging technology, and that'll work for now and the future. And I'm also going to give you some actually proven tips and tools that I use today to close more sales, okay? So by the end of the seminar, you should be able to have a grasp on all these three concepts. Okay, just a little bit of history. 30-year-old residential painting company since 1991 in Toronto and Canada. We've painted over 15,000 homes. We've sold over $20 million in revenues, 80% of which since 2012. So most of our growth happened between 2012 and present. We currently have over 25 and 30 full-time painters. Pre-COVID revenues were closer to the 4 million range. Post-COVID now, we're probably gonna be hitting in the 2 to 3 million range. So we're gonna be down around 20% approximately this year. On average, we quote between 2,000 and 25 homes a year, which is 50 to 60 quotes a week. And historically, our average job size is between 4,000 and 5,000. Mostly all residential, 95% residential. And our closing ratio has by design been between 40 and 45% range. And that's actually by design, as I said, because we used to price a lot lower and our closing ratio was closer to the 70% range. But for our business model, I found that the 40%, 45% closing ratio worked for us, okay? So I'm gonna get into, in 1 minute or less, I'm just gonna give you a quick history because this is kind of important because I think what happened in my history is basically indicative of what's gonna happen in the present and near future. So I started, as I said, in door knocking through student painters. And in 2000 came the internet, which knocked us off our pants because cold calling was no longer a means and direct mail, lawn signs was no longer the main means of communicating with your client. And then we had declining sales of over a decade, which was very, very painful. It was kind of a paradigm shift that kind of made us realize that we didn't know what the hell we were doing and we better get our act together or we're gonna fall out of business. And then I finally hired a coach in 2012, just 8 years ago. Established a marketing budget, went online, did a whole bunch of digital marketing, ninja things to get me to where I am today. And now we have we've tenfolded our sales from about 375K to well over 3 million. COVID-19 impact now. This is, in my view, and been in the business 33 years now, it's a major paradigm shift in how sales reps communicate with their clients. Before, we could knock on, or we could just show up and then show them our binder, paper, our client manual, whatever, and they're good with that. This is actually good news, actually, because even before COVID, this was already happening, but because of COVID, it just got sped up that much further. So now people are going online, as you know, and they're using more of the online tactics in terms of finding their painters, communicating through emails, texts, and what have you before they even see a painter. And this is more good news because the way clients have been choosing their painters will actually require less expertise, less training, less hiring, and
That's not if I wanted to.
basically lowering your overhead overall, and which is good for your net profits. The bad news is it's time to get very uncomfortable, because as it was very uncomfortable for me back in 2000, shifting from knocking on doors to the internet, this is a paradigm shift. And when that comes, whatever happened in the past is not going to work in the future, long-term wise. So it's really important to realize it's going to be uncomfortable, in my view, in the next 1 year or even less than that. And what does it mean for sales reps? Well, the fact is, clients no longer want to meet sales reps face-to-face as easily before COVID than after COVID. That is a fact. And they are now fact, and this was happening before COVID, but it's even more now. They're doing a lot of online shopping, research, fishing for ballpark quotes, before they even want to commit to getting a quote or meeting a sales rep. They just don't want to waste the time, or do they want to risk meeting so many sales, getting so many quotes, and potentially getting sick? Now, what does it mean? It's even more important now that we don't waste our time or the client's time. That's what it means, basically. And it's basically sped up that funnel in terms of getting to a yes or no, which is really, really powerful for sales reps, because a lot of times the biggest pain in the butts are the ones that are tire kickers, and they go on and on and on, and you never get a yes or no out of them. The other thing is, this is our time. In my view, 2000 was the first paradigm. Now it's 2020. This is the next paradigm where we really need to step up our online game. And that means websites, selling online, providing as much content and data as to what our services do, what we stand for and what we don't stand for, before they make their buying decisions or want to meet with the sales reps. A lot of my clients, they actually come to me and say, "Brian, I've checked you out. We read everything. I just want a price now." So they've already done their research, and the website did the selling for them. Okay, so my prediction in the next year, give or take, the virtual online quoting tools industry is just going to go through the roof. Customers are going to be shopping more online for painters through Zoom, pictures sending, online quoting, getting ballpark quotes from their painters even before they meet the sales reps. So how do we adjust to this? And for that matter, how can we even profit from this? So I'm going to go through a number of ways we can do this. First is pre-qualify our leads better. We used to do this before as a company, but now we're really doing it even more. We're asking clients a set of questions before we even meet with them, because we don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste our time. For example, where do you live? Like, does the area reside in the area that we want to work? How soon do you need your project? In other words, can we produce the job fast enough to meet your needs? What services do you want done? Can we do the service at all? And what's your this is the toughest one. What's your approximate budget, or did you have a minimum budget? And that's a tough question, and I've trained my lead qualifiers in terms of how to ask that question elegantly and not offend the client. And I'll get into more on that later. First way, most easiest way is to vet the client, is pre-qualifying them through your website. And we have a two-step online form where we ask for their basic information first: name, email, phone number. And then, of course, their more pertinent information, the qualification parts later: location, main reason for the project, approximate start date, and approximate budget as well. If they get through that and they actually make it to the next step, we actually text them. And this is very, very important. I'm going to get into texting more in the future of this seminar. The texting, I'm finding, is the #1 way I communicate with clients nowadays. Before, it used to be emailing, calling, and texting was part of it. But now it's, I'd say, 75% texting. Email is the second way, which is good too, but I find that it's slower. People don't check their emails as often as they check their texts. The others, the fastest way, is calling them. But I don't know about any of you guys, but people just aren't answering their phones as much as they used to. And I don't know whether it be spam or whatever, they're just not answering their phones as much. So even before I call them, I'll text them. I'll say, "Brian from Home Painters, is it okay if I call you now?" Just something as simple as that, and then they'll answer the call. Before that, a lot of times they won't even answer the call. Third way to pre-qualify a client, and this is the worst case scenario, is if you've already gone to the quote, you're meeting the client in person, and you might as well go through the pre-qualification process and do the 5-10 minute spiel. Basically what I call it is our is our walkthrough, our discovery part, where we go through the job, ask clients a number of questions such as where did you find this? When do you want it done? All those other questions. And then I'll somehow pop in that question between 5 to 10 minutes. I'll say something like, okay, do you mind me asking, do you have a budget for this type of a project? Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. If they don't say no, I'll say, okay, let me help you out here. I've done hundreds of these types of projects. I'd say ballpark, you're looking somewhere between whatever the number is, 5 to 8K range, depending on exactly what we're quoting on. If you don't mind me asking, was this in the range that you thought? And then from there, you can actually keep yourself from wasting their time and your time. And they'll say, yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking. Or sometimes they'll say something like, I'm getting a few other quotes, but it seems in line. And sometimes if they're more blunt about it, say, you know what, that's completely out of the ballpark. I was only looking for this price, this whatever, $1,000. I'll say, okay, well, realistically, I just don't want to waste your time. I think we're going to probably be a lot higher than that. And then I'll even offer them an option. I'll say, do you want to maybe consider your scope? Maybe we just, instead of doing your whole house, we just do a few of the rooms. And then I'll, of course, lessen the quote based on that. But the bottom line is you want to pre-qualify your client all steps of the way. And of course, it checks out, keep going to the next stage. The other way we can adjust or pivot, I've found over the years, is segmenting your client. And what I mean by that is I've broken our clients down to 5 different types of buyers. So there's the general refresh. Ones want just a refresh, a freshen up, or different change in color. Then there's buyers and there's sellers. Then there's problem, like for example, there's a leak, asbestos, or stucco problem, something to do with a damage. And then there's exterior, okay? So there's 5 different types of buyers, and it's very important you sell differently or you address their needs differently, those 5 different types of buyers. The first type is the general refresh, and interior in particular. Usually they want to pain points are, they want a change of scenery, they're tired of their old colors, they need a state change, they want a transformation, they're tired and sick of looking at their walls, and they just want a complete state change. So I'm going to get into how we address that. Then of course, probably been thinking about this for months, maybe even years, been procrastinating. I don't know about you guys since COVID. I don't know how many customers have said to me, been wanting to do this for years. Now I'm forced to look at my ugly walls, and now I want to change. So how you sell them or how you solve their problems, I find is using the color and the design, exploiting that part of their pain points more than anything. So if you spend the majority of your time talking about color, design, accent walls, focal points, Benjamin, no more, this color, that color, I find you're going to be talking more to their needs than any other pain point. I'll ask them something like, so what inspired you to finally get the painting done after all this time thinking about it? Or another question would be, what color were you thinking of and how did you come to this color idea? And then usually you'll get, especially whoever was the color expert in the house, usually it's the wife, and they'll usually light up a Christmas tree and they'll give you a whole story behind everything, and you just listen, and I find that you're talking right to their pain points, and you're talking to a lot more of their needs, and you're in a lot better rapport than if you're just talking about how cheap you can be or how expensive you are and how you're so great as a painter. Talk to them. It's about them. It's not about us. Second type of buyer is buyers and moving in. Okay. And this is usually the most stressful time for homeowners. They got to move in. They got their uncertainty about closing date. They got to coordinate movers, cleaners, internet, kids at school, et cetera, et cetera. They don't have time to pick colors. The odd time they do, but most of the time they're actually just want to get it freshened up. They want it cleaned up. And if you can give them a solution with their colors, like coordinating different situations, different color aspects, what their needs are, then you're going to be in a lot better situation than someone else. The other thing is finances. They're usually house poor, but at that point, usually they are actually in a better position than, say, sellers. They don't mind spending a little bit more finances than, let's say, a seller. Okay, so how do I address these problems? Color, as I said, again, design. If you look at yourself as a design consultant, rather than a painter that's just gonna paint their house and make it look better, and you're gonna be a lot further ahead. The other thing that allows us in particular is allowing us to be able to have a number of painters speed. Okay, usually when they're buying, they don't have very much time between the time they get possession and the time they move in. If you're lucky, you get a week. you're lucky. And in most cases, they have even less than that. So if you can express to the client that you have a big enough team that you can get in and out fast and get it done as fast as possible, and even schedule it as fast as possible. So in other words, first question, they'll actually qualify me as a painter. They'll say, well, are you available the month of November during the week of whatever, November 7th to the 14th? And as soon as they say yes, then they go on to the next question. So they're actually qualifying me. So that's actually happening more and more as well. The other thing is handyman repairs. If you can get a carpenter or a handyman on your staff, we have two of them, they could basically fix odds and ends like floors, door jambs, trim, drywalling, any of those types of little handyman repairs that have to be done usually when you move into a house, and you're way farther ahead than the next guy. And it's a bonus if you could do niche services such as cabinet spraying, popcorn ceiling flattening, and as well as brick staining. Third type of clients is sellers. Okay, and these type of clients are usually on a budget. They don't want to throw good money after bad. But again, another one of their pain point is rush. They want to get it on the market fast. And the other thing, as I've mentioned before, is flexibility of services. If you can look at yourself as a one-stop shop, have a carpenter on staff that can do the little odds and ends, a huge bonus as well. And the final is flexible payment plans. If you can give them, like, for example, the option of post-dated checks, credit cards to pay monthly over 3 or 4 months, that's a bonus as well. I find that's talking to their needs as well. How to sell them, get to their pain points, budget. Okay, I'm gonna give you some of the tips that I use whenever I try to lower the scope, because we're usually we are a premium painting company, so we're actually usually higher than most of the other companies. But the way I minimize the price and at the same time don't go out of business, I'll start eliminating things like, okay, well, you're selling the home. Most people, when they come in your home, they don't look up and stare at the ceiling. So I would try to eliminate the ceiling, unless of course it really needs to be done. I'll try to get the ceilings out of there. Basements as well. They don't like your front door and your front entrance area. They're not even gonna go to the basement. And that goes for the bedrooms as well. So I try to get the basements out of there, sometimes even the bedrooms. The other thing is I try to paint with one neutral color. It's a lot easier and cheaper to paint with one color versus 5 or 6, especially when a lot of the time the colors, you can barely tell the color difference because sometimes they're so similar. And the other thing is I prioritize walls over baseboards, trim and doors, and other parts of the rooms as well. Just because walls, you get your biggest bang for your buck. For us as a painting company, we profit the most out off the walls. Trim and doors, we don't make that much off of, as well as ceilings. So I try to get these things out of the quote and keep the price within a budget, and we can sell to their needs better. The others is colors. I actually have a neutral color, I call it our neutral color template that we send to all our new clients. And when they want to just pick certain neutral color, it's really simple. If we could simplify as a sales rep, if you can simplify the buying process, a lot of times you're just solving all their problems, especially when they're buying and selling. They got all this other stuff on their mind, and painting is just one of the many things. If you can simplify the process, you're going to be really far ahead in the game. Then, of course, speed, get it done fast and quick. If you're lucky, once they decide to sell the house, they got between two weeks and a month to put it on the market and start staging it. So if you can get in there and get out fast, and that's a huge bonus as well. Then, of course, as I said, look at yourself as a one-stop shop, providing services for floors, doors, fixing door jambs, trim, drywalling, stuff like that. If you can solve their problems, less people to have to coordinate. A lot of times people say, you know what, in fact, this is how I got into the carpentry and of hiring them, is a lot of them times the customer will say, well, I went with another painter. I love them, but I loved you, but I like them more just because I didn't have to worry about coordinating an electrician, a plumber, or whatever it is, or a wood guy to fix my doors. So I went with them. So that's when I went out and got my own carpenter. Fourth type is problem situation. This one's pretty obvious. For example, mold, water damage, asbestos, drywall holes, and smoke stains. It's pretty obvious. Usually at this point, the client's pretty upset and they just want to fix their problems. So at this point, I don't rub it in anymore, and I just empathize with their situation. And I'll say something like, wow, okay, I totally understand. God, if this would happen in my house, I'd be pretty upset too. Empathize with them, focus on the solution, not try to dig in the problem anymore, because they already know they need to fix it or else it looks terrible. And again, if you can sell more on empathy and pro-action as I'm the guy that's going to get this done for you and fix your problem, you're going to be way farther ahead in the game. Final type of customer is the exterior. We're just finishing our exterior season now. So we just got a boatload of exteriors this summer, and the main thing there, need satisfaction. damaging of woods, leaking windows, really obvious pain points. But then you can also give it the positive part and talk about curb appeal, modernizing their homes, making their colors more unified so it's less busy. I don't know what it's like down in the States, but in Toronto, they used to have two tones, a lot of windows, a lot of trim and doors. Now we just simplify it, all one color. The other thing is fear of heights. Usually I'll slip into a sales conversation at some point. I'll say, well, it's pretty high. And I'll kind of just laugh about it. And as soon as, a lot of times when I say that, the husband will say to me, yeah, that's why my wife doesn't let me go up on ladders. So that's why I'm getting you to do it. And we kind of have a little bit of a chuckle about it. Okay, so how to sell to these types of clients? Need satisfaction, I said before. We're gonna protect your home. We're gonna keep your wood from rotting. We're gonna keep your windows from leaking and save on heat and moisture as well. Again, like I said, you can slip in the fact that, yes, I'm gonna modernize the colors. Taupes, the taupes and grays are in Toronto, that's the biggest colors that are going nowadays. Front door focal points, making things simplified, unified, more open, more modernized. Talk to them in that language, and you're going to be talking to their language as well. Heights as well. Obviously, this is more of a factual thing, more of a logical thing, but yeah, emphasize your safety aspect. Insurance, working at height certificates, the fact that you take care with your guys, you make sure that they're safely harnessed off, or they've all taken certain safety programs to make sure that they're not going to fall and get injured on your property as well. Speaks to them as well. How else can we adjust? Okay, so we just spoke about speaking to each customer differently. How else can we adjust to this COVID situation? And the other thing is I found that COVID kind of just heightened everything that much more, meaning you have that much less time and in terms of bandwidth to be able to get your sale done. And so I find that this question that I ask here on the screen is the #1 best question that pretty much sells the job, and that gives me a huge insight on what they're looking for. And I ask them, fast forward 2 to 3 weeks later, once we've completed your project, what would have to happen in order for you to give us a 10 out of 10 review and refer us to all your friends and family? So I ask that question, and then I just shut the bleep up and let them talk. And usually I'll just nod my head and go, wow, yeah. So if you could just nod and just get them to talk more, and usually by then they're selling you on them and what they want and what you're gonna sell them, what you're gonna do in order to take care of their needs, okay? Remember, the sale's about them, not about us, not about how great we are, how many years we've been in business, not how many years we warranty it. Of course, those are important points, but of course, it's all about them and their needs, okay? And again, remember, most clients, if you're lucky, I mean, will be seeing two to three other painting companies. So there's not too many other painting companies that will ask this question and really get to the crux of what their problems are and what their pain points are. Okay, I'm gonna give you 4 tips and of ways we can adjust and pivot to this COVID situation in the past 7 months. And I've been selling roughly 30 to 40 leads a week, sometimes more, depending on the month. So I've done a big, huge, let's say, survey, market survey on what I think's been working and what hasn't been. And the #1 is texting. I'm finding that the majority of people are checking their emails, but usually maybe 2 or 3 times a day maximum. But the text is they're looking at every hour of the day, if not every 15 minutes. So my #1 form of communication is texting, and we're in the process of building a CRM around that. So yes, we still have emails, but we're building a CRM around texting versus emailing. So that's been, this, by the way, this has been happening, as I said, before COVID, but just in the past 6 to 7 months, it's just been heightened that much more, okay? So start the text communication as soon as you can, ideally when they call in and they're asking for a quote. So usually sometimes if I can't get a hold of a customer right away on the phone, I'll text them back, say, hey, Mr. Customer, whatever your name is, were you still interested in getting a quote? ? Thanks, Brian from Home Painters. And usually within 15 minutes, maximum an hour, they'll text back, yes, I'm busy right now, but can I call you at 2 p.m.? And so that's been a huge thing. Once you start the communication of text, then it's just, you're communicating that much better. At worst, this is what I do is if I haven't texted them before then, I'll text them 30 minutes before I show up, or within 1 hour, I'll say, on my way, thanks, Brian from Home Painters. And most often than not, they'll text you back saying something like, great, I'm here. And I'm just going to show you one of the texts that I just sent, actually not even 2 weeks ago. So I'll say, on my way, and then they'll say, perfect, the buzzer is blah, 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 blah. And then I'll send them a video. This is really actually kind of cutting edge in my view, because I got some huge ROI on this. And I came up with this video, and you guys can copy it from the link, the YouTube video. And what I did was I put me in it, and I put here, as it says, by the way, here's a video from what makes us unique from others. I'm the guy in the black shirt in the video, so you can recognize me. And it's unbelievable how many customers actually watch the video before I arrive, within 30 minutes of me arriving, and they actually start spouting off some of the stuff in the video. And usually I'm in a mask, so they'll say, oh, that's what you look like without a mask on. And it's kind of a joke. I say, well, actually, maybe I should keep it on. And they laugh about it. So anyway, the other thing is so this has kind of made me change my perspective on videos. And so what I've done is I've started to compile a bunch of videos on our services, interior, exterior kitchen cabinet painting, popcorn ceiling flattening, for example. And it doesn't have to be professional videos. You don't have to like spend like hundreds and thousands of dollars to do these videos. Just take a quick video of your guy doing the process and then just saying, hey, this is Brian from Home Painters. This is how we flatten popcorn ceilings. We're scraping it off now. We're plastering, we're skim plastering, and we're sanding again. And then something as simple as that, just text over that video to the client. And I find it just communicates to them so much better than just going up and saying, oh yeah, by the way, we do this, we do that. They're just that much more responsive. My view is humans in general in the last 6-7 months just don't want to speak to each other. They'd rather communicate through technology, online, texting. I know it's kind of sad, but it's the reality. And in a positive light, it actually makes it easier on you as a sales rep to sell to your client if you're selling through videos and your website. This is the one page I found, I call it my go-to page that closes them. And whenever clients, sometimes they're hemming and hawing whether they want to go with me, they'll say, oh, why are you better than the other company? Why are you this? Why are you more expensive? Blah, 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 blah. I say, listen, do me a favor, go to this testimonial page, and I'm just going to show you a couple of our jobs. Click on a few of them, and then come back to me after this. Usually when they come back to me after, I've sold them. Actually, the page has sold them, and I can basically just say, okay, now let's talk numbers, or let's talk starting time, or let's talk colors, and let's get this thing done, because they've been sold, okay? There's over 30 on our testimonial page. You guys can copy and paste the link to whatever, and you can see what we're doing. We have over 30 video reviews of customers talking about everything from how they found us to what we do, what we don't do. And it's unbelievable impactful. When you get a customer referring you or talking about how great you are, it's so much more impactful than you as a sales rep saying how great you are. So I find if you can have it, and you don't even need to have a testimonial page, you can have even a couple, even 15, 20, 30-second videos of a customer talking about how much they love the job. That to me is just as powerful. So if you can, maybe I would recommend is going around with your clients at the end of a job when you're collecting the money, say, oh, if you don't mind, can I ask a few questions and can I record it? Yeah, and if they're really happy, a lot of times they do. I'd say on average, one out of two, more than half will actually say yes. Just record them 30 seconds, say, okay, well, how was the job? How do you like the painters? Were you happy with the process? What would you say? What would you say about Home Painters if you were to recommend us to a friend? Ask those types of questions. 30 seconds, 1 minute max, email them to the next client and then, sorry, not email them, text the link to the next client and then see what they say about it and see if this does the selling a heck of a lot better than you do. Adjustment number 2, getting rid of paper and sales brochures. I think this was really the most, it kind of offended me at first actually. I would always do it paper. And I did have a way to sending quotes online, but I would send, this is back in March when COVID first hit. I'd be writing them up and the customer didn't even want to touch it. They actually came within, I think, 4 or 5 feet and say, can you read it to me? I'm like, okay, sure. But that's when I kind of realized that, okay, get rid of paper. I mean, it's good to have as a backup, but I would definitely not lead with it. And folders, cards are good to have, like I said before. Not too many of them are actually asking for it, but it's good to have. But trying to sell, if you can sell through an online portal, we use Infusionsoft. We're actually in the process of getting migrated to Zoho. But whatever CRM or whatever online platform you can do where you can send quotes online, way more powerful. customers are way more receptive to accepting that. And at first it felt really, really kind of strange because I have a tendency to want to quote on the spot, and then I'll actually say, okay, check your email now. And most of them have their email on their cell phone. If they don't, I usually just narrate it to them. And then I get their feedback. I said, so if you don't mind me asking, how did you feel about the price, the quality, the job, the warranty? Were you happy about that? And this is a way to sell face-to-face without paper, not offending them, not scaring them, and again, cutting edge, and you have everything on your CRM, okay? Estimate folders, by the way, I still use, as well as paper. I have it as a backup, but I definitely don't lead with it. And I only do it with the clients that actually even kind of like hint it at, they'll say, oh, can I get your number? Like if they haven't texted or whatever, of course I'll give it to them and I have the brochures, but I'm not gonna lead with that anymore. Adjustment number 3, again, we've talked about it, leveraging technology. If you're not selling with a tablet or an iPad and videos, you're really, really, really selling yourself short as a painting company. And what I mean by that is, well, now we sell exclusively off iPads. Again, I have a brochure as a backup, like my estimate folder here. Actually, I have it right in front of me here. But this iPad thing I'm just going to show you is, I don't know if you can see it with this light here, but this is the iPad that sells me pretty much like 99% of my jobs now. And I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I can't get into that now just because it's too long. But in this way, I can actually sell to the clients. Actually, I don't need to sell to the clients. I can have a sales rep or an assistant go through the PowerPoint presentation, selling the company as well. And this is the other thing I use. So videos, what I do is I'll play a video that's relevant to their job. So let's say if it's exterior painting, I will play them our exterior painting video while I'm coming up with their quote on my cell phone. So I use a combination of iPad, videos, and cell phone while I'm in their presence to sell the job. And in this way, it allows me to close jobs, get their reaction, and this is the other thing. So I really strongly recommend, if you can, quote them in person and try to get them the price and quote on the spot. If you can't do that, in my view, at least give them a ballpark. Say, I'm going to send you the details in about 30 minutes, but it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 5K or whatever. If you don't mind me asking, if it were to be in that range, was that something that you'd be interested in getting it done? And then you could start selling them there. And then a lot of times they'll say, oh, okay. Sometimes they'll say, that's totally reasonable. I've gotten 2 other prices. That's right in range. Now I just got to think about it with my wife, or I got to think about it overnight. And then, but the bottom line is you can get to yes or no that much faster if you're selling in person. And through technology, as you can do it in person, is just as powerful. Actually more powerful that way, because they always have it in their inbox as well. The other way is, this is kind of funny. You can't hide it, paint it red. And what I mean by that is I actually make COVID-19 as part of our sales process. What I mean by that is I'll have pictures, videos, actual written material on how we take care of our clients' safety in terms of how we make sure we abide by the guidelines, emphasize safety, cleanliness, awareness, emphasize this all over your marketing, social media. Again, I've surveyed a lot of clients, and they, it's kind of rude, but they actually, if you don't mind me asking, can I ask what was your main fear? We don't want people in our house, and a lot of times actually during the job, they'll say, your painter's asking to use the washroom. Is there any way you can ask them to get out of the house, basically? And so the clients have communicated with me over time these pain points, and that's what we're trying to do up front, put it part of our sales process and solve this up front, as opposed to making them wonder about it later. And again, most of your competition probably isn't doing this. So again, if you're staying ahead of the curve, it's going to make you that much more profitable. And the funny thing is I know we have sanitizers. If you look in the screen, actually at Home Painters, we spent $4,000 on sanitizers. And now what I do is I actually don't even, I have it in my portfolio, and I say, do you want to pull this little string, because it's attached to a string with a little bag beside it, bag and the sanitizers in it. And they pull it out, and I say, oh, it's a little prize for having us do a quote. And they actually we have a little bit of a chuckle about it, and it kind of breaks the tension. So I find that is another way of saying, listen, I'm up front here. Here's what we are. Here's what we aren't. And love us or hate us, this is what we are. And most customers respond positively to that. So in summary, with COVID here, in my view, this is instead of a fearful time, which it was back in March, to be honest, this is actually the most pivotal time in the history of my 33 years in painting, whereby we can actually gain market share and take advantage of this really difficult situation. And my main reason is because, yes, we're going to hit it straight on. We're going to face it. We're going to provide what we can do about it to our clients and be very transparent about it. So it's our job as sales reps, or as owners for that matter, to make sure we capitalize this and address the situation up front. So now also it's time to save time and being respectful, pre-qualifying them. There's not too many times, there's been the odd time where a client would actually be offended saying, why are you asking me these questions? But the majority of them actually, if you pose it to them, say, if you don't mind, I just want to help you out here. I can give you an idea of what you're looking at, just because we've done hundreds of these types of jobs. Most of them will want an idea of the price, or at least an idea of what's involved before you show up. So by pre-qualifying, you're actually saving you both a lot of time. And then of course, doing in person, if you do get to meet them in person, it means they're that much more apt to go with you. If you actually show up to a client's house and you're meeting them in person, then you're halfway there. I mean, if not 60% there, because they've actually gone through the barrier of like, this, I'm serious, I'm taking my time, I'm even risking my health to get a quote from this guy. Okay, again, speaking to their language. And again, if they're buyer, seller, general refresh, exterior, problem situation, you can sell to those 5 different clients differently. You're talking to them much better. COVID, again, number 4, will eventually go away, I hope. But the new way of business definitely won't, in my view. I don't know if you noticed, but I don't know how many people have started moving out in the suburbs away from the city because they're not going back to work anymore. Or if they are, they're only going back once in a while or when they really need to. It's not changing. It is what it is. We got to just adapt and take advantage of this situation rather than realize, like for guys like me who've been selling 33 years, it sucks because I used to be able to sell so many of my clients in person, getting them to close on the spot. Now I got to use technology. Takes more time, takes a little bit more navigation, but anyone can do it. You can get not even a sales rep, you can get your assistant or maybe one of your painters to do a lot of this stuff, and the client's like more than half sold before you even show up to the job. Long term, this is actually a great opportunity to start systematizing your sales process so you can sell to everyone with as little skill using technologies such as iPad, CRM, automation, texting, and getting rid of the old paper method, and of course, selling in the future. I threw a lot at you in this last half hour, but the key is take things bit by bit. Like I said, you don't need a big, huge, expensive website and a huge video team to get this done. You need a cell phone and a little bit of patience and to be able to record people and ask questions and get it done that way and send free texts, all those types of things will make it get it done. And don't forget, I've been doing this for 8 years. I've been kind of heading my business towards this automation thing. And so, yeah, we may be further ahead than some of you, but it doesn't take like a brain surgeon, like I said, to just send a text, send a link to a video and get it done. And that's just as powerful as having a website that's been spent thousands and thousands of dollars on. So there's a lot of hope for whether you're technology based or not. So in my views, we are on the cusp of a new era, and this is our opportunity to actually make a huge, huge difference. And so let's go for it. And thanks very much.
Thank you, Brian. Very, very, very good. We really enjoyed sharing your expertise with us. We do have a little time. If anybody have any questions for Brian, if you would just type them in the chat box on your screen so Brian can address them before we leave. Feel free to type them in the chat box.
Lost for words.
Tony, I'm going to jump in real quick too, because I did have one private question come up. It's to hi, but everybody, in case you don't know that it's me on the other end. This was recorded and it will be available probably on Thursday for anyone that has a team member that they want to share it with. We'll send an email through Constant Contact, and we will also post it on the website. The marketing presentation from September is also live on the website as well if you wanted to go back and watch that.
Okay, Brian, we do have a question from Imhoff Painters. Brian, do you have other salespeople And if so, do you have a formal training program?
I did before COVID. And actually, I was actually lost my two main sales reps in March, and I was thrown into the sales field unexpectedly. But actually, lo and behold, I actually was so desperate, I actually got my ex to help me sell over the summer. And she's worked like not even 3 months as a general helper in my business, and she was doing a lot of selling for me. So to answer your question, yes, I do have a formal sales process. Even more importantly, I have my iPad PowerPoint presentation in video where I said, make sure on each sale you go through these slides, play them the video. If you've done that, you've done your job. Let me do the rest. And then the system closes itself. So yes, I do have a system, and I do have one assistant. But now it's coming in the slow season. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. But prior to COVID, yeah, we had 2 sales reps, and unfortunately I lost them.
Okay, Brian, another one. Imhoff Painting is expanding. Did you, on his first question, did you set up the system yourself?
100%. I did everything myself. I kind of reverse engineered a part of my sales process to make it more simple for them. In other words, I would tell them a certain list of questions they had to ask the client before they left. I used the PowerPoint presentation. I constantly reinforced texting. Even before COVID, I was saying text, 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 text. Text them before you show up. Text them when you leave. Follow up with the text. So yeah, 100%. I would meet with them every week too, minimum once a week, to kind of reinforce these things, because I find sales reps have a tendency to kind of go off on their own. And I have a proven formula that basically closes my clients at a certain profit rate that works. I try not to have them deviate too much from it.
Okay, we have another question for you, Brian, from Mike. Have you seen a virtual sale change if being first or last appointment makes a difference versus in person?
Yeah, I actually try to be first. And the reason why, you're at a bit of a disadvantage because you got to follow up and you got to wait for other painters to come in after. But you have the advantage that you can sometimes close them on the spot in the first sale. And how I do that is I'll throw them the price, and I'll ask them, if you don't mind me asking, was this in the line that you were expecting? And if they say, yeah, it was, but I still want to get 2 other prices, I'll say, okay, well, I kind of know, I know the market. I've been doing this for 30 years. You're probably going to get one, maybe a little higher, and you're probably going to get a couple, 2 or 3 that are quite a bit lower than me. And here's why. And then I go on my UVP. We have a lifetime warranty. We have workers' comp. We have blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, do you want to just save the hassle and get it done now? And then I find that 1 out of 3 clients actually, it's a ballsy question to ask, but 1 out of 3 I've surveyed actually will say, you know what, let me speak to my wife. Just give me 5 minutes. And then sometimes I'll pretend to go to the car and say, well, I have to make some texts anyway. And I'll go to the car, and then I'll come back and I'll close them on the spot. I've closed a lot of jobs that way. So I prefer to go in first for that reason. The only disadvantage is that sometimes another company might come in and do exactly what I just did and close them on the spot. So it's really important to set up a follow-up appointment and say, okay, when are you getting your other prices? And they'll say, oh, I'm going to get one on Wednesday and my last one's on Thursday at noon. Okay, so do you mind if I call you at Thursday at noon and follow up? Most of the time they actually don't get it right there, because I'm realizing that most painters don't quote them on the spot. I'll follow up at Thursday at noon. They'll say, yeah, I came by, but he didn't give me a quote. And they'll say, well, do you have any idea when he's sending it? He said in the next day or 2. I'm like, okay, great. But that's the only disadvantage, is sometimes you can lose that way. But I find just being proactive, being the first on the ball, gives you more advantages than disadvantages.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I don't see any more questions. So thank you again, Brian, and thank you all for your participation in today's webinar. May I invite you to attend next month's webinar on Tuesday, November 17th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, entitled 10 Trends in the Painting Industry, presented by Emily Howard of APC Magazine. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.